Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
It's the first step for the full reconstruction of the Ocean Beach Pier. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A sign posted at the Ocean Beach Pier says an application has been filed for its demolition. As KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen shows us, the news is bittersweet for locals.
The pier is an iconic part of Ocean Beach.
I've grown up around the pier.
People from far and wide come here to take photos and take in the view.
It's really a spectacular sight.
The pier has been closed since October. It was further damaged by the winter storms in late December. But local residents were still surprised to see the application for demolition notice posted on the pier this weekend. Lisa Munoz lives near the pier and was sad to see the notice.
I'm a San Diego native, and so I have a lot of memories on Ocean Beach Pier, so I was hoping they would be able to renovate it.
The city is in the middle of the planning phase to renew the pier. The 57-year-old pier has reached the end of its service life. The city says the notice is not related to the storm damage and there are no active plans to tear down the pier. The notice is part of the process for the environmental study required under the California Environmental Quality Act.
As you can see, the waves are slamming these pilings pretty hard. Last winter, a storm took out one of these pilings, and the city is doing an assessment to see if the pier can be reopened.
Jim Hickey says it's a good idea that the city wants to replace the pier, but he thinks it should be opened for the time being so people can enjoy it again.
If they repaired some of the pilings where the heavy surf hits under the cafe and everything, it might be a good idea until they decide to make the move.
The pier will be closed until city engineers assess its stabilization. For now, officials are asking beachgoers to stay away from the pier. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
A brutal Arctic blast is bringing record low temperatures and life-threatening wind chills across the large part of the U.S. Deaths have been reported across several states. Laura Aguirre has the latest on the storm and where the system is heading next.
I saw the car spinning this way and another one spinning.
Scary moments for this Houston area driver who says his 35-minute commute took more than 6 hours on icy roads. Parts of Texas, along with much of the country stretching from the Gulf region up to Maine and in the Pacific Northwest, remain under some level of winter storm alerts Tuesday. A majority of the country could see sub-freezing temperatures in the coming week, and several cold records were broken Monday, with more possible to fall in the hours ahead. And over 120 million people are under wind chill warnings stretching border to border across the U.S. A number of weather-related deaths have been reported in multiple states, as have many search and rescue operations.
Anytime we have to hike in to rescue somebody, it's difficult, but when it's 15 degrees outside and it's snowing, it ups the ante a lot more.
4 college students in Powell County, Kentucky are now safe after being airlifted out of a gorge when the elements overwhelmed their campsite. In Arkansas, National Guard units with Humvees are helping stranded motorists.
What we can do to make sure they're warm, for one, if they're stranded, or to be able to get them the kind of off-road assistance as possible.
Air travel is snarled for yet another day this week as major carriers delay or cancel thousands of flights, according to data from FlightAware. Government offices in D.C. are closed for the first time since January of 2022 due to weather, but the snow was a welcome sight on the National Mall. I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
No relief in sight from the brutally frigid conditions. According to a weather service, the new surge of colder air will arrive over the northern plains, the Midwest, and the deep south by the end of the week.
Let's talk about the short term as we venture our way into tonight. A partly cloudy sky. Not quite as cool as previous nights. We'll drop down to 52. Could that be a precursor to some changes as we work our way down the road. In fact, we're going to stretch it out and talk about not only late week, but heading in toward the upcoming weekend. I'll highlight those potential changes coming up here in just a little bit.
Former President Donald Trump solidified his place as front runner after winning the Iowa caucuses with a record-breaking percentage. Now Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley face pressure to prove they have a path to the nomination. Julia Benbrook is in Des Moines with what's next.
While his competition went straight to the campaign trail today, Trump was back in the courtroom for a defamation case. On top of that legal challenge, the former president faces 91 criminal charges across 4 indictments. An entrance poll last night showed that that wasn't an issue for Iowa voters. 65% of those surveyed said that Trump would still be fit for the presidency if convicted of a crime. Let's take a look back at last night's historic win as these overlapping storylines take place. Former President Donald Trump claimed the largest win in Iowa caucus history with more than 50% of the vote.
I just want to thank you all. This is a very special night, and this is the first because the big night is going to be in November when we take back our country, and truly, we do make our country great again.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis took home a distant second place.
Thank you so much.
A disappointing finish for a candidate who went all in on Iowa. But the Florida governor continues to promise he's the one who can take on Trump.
Well, I'm the alternative. The reality is half the Republicans do want another choice, and maybe more in some other states. But you have to be somebody that appeals to conservative voters.
Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley followed DeSantis closely, coming in third. She's been on an upward trajectory in New Hampshire, where voters head to the polls next week.
We're putting Iowa in the rearview mirror. I mean, now it's New Hampshire and it's go time. We've got a week to go and do that, but I've been campaigning here for 11 months now. And so we're ready to kind of just finish this off and get it, and we're a stone's throw away from him.
Campaign season is full steam ahead, but debate season, at least for the primaries, may be over. Trump has skipped all the scheduled GOP debates so far, and that strategy seems to be working for him. Haley is now following his lead, announcing on social media that she'll only debate if it's against Trump or President Joe Biden. Reporting in Des Moines, I'm Julia Benbrook.
In the nation's capital, Congress members are racing to avert a partial government shutdown. Funding for key agencies expires Friday, including military construction, Veterans Affairs, Transportation, Housing, and the Energy Department. The rest of the federal government is funded until February 2nd. The House and Senate must pass a funding extension and send it to the president's desk before Friday's deadline to avoid a shutdown. A bill making its way through the state legislature seeks to redevelop the DMV field office in Hillcrest with affordable housing. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it's been a long time coming.
The Hillcrest DMV is an aging 2-story building surrounded by a crumbling surface parking lot. The building was built in 1960, and the entire property is about 3 acres. All around it, new apartment buildings are breathing life into the neighborhood. Assemblymember Chris Ward authored AB 1635, which would order the DMV to build a new field office with affordable housing on top. He says both the city and the private sector are investing in Hillcrest with new housing and park space.
And to have a sort of donut hole in this revitalization effort is not consistent with either our stated housing goals for this state to be able to use all properties in an efficient way, nor is it, I think, respectful of the direction that the community is going.
There have been past efforts to build something new on the Hillcrest property. A state law passed in 2007 also called for a mixed-use DMV office with housing on top, but it failed to get the project done. Then in 2018, the state proposed a DMV-only facility surrounded by fencing. That project was panned by residents. Ward says since then, state agencies have been dragging their feet.
There's a lot of pieces that need to be evaluated, but I'm just kind of beyond the point of patience right now after 20 years waiting for the state to realize a project in the heart of a revitalizing community.
The bill sets a deadline of 2026 to come up with a redevelopment plan. It passed its first committee last week. It has to pass the full assembly before the end of the month, followed by consideration in the Senate. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Apple is moving an artificial intelligence team from San Diego to Texas. In a statement, Apple says its data operations annotation team, which specializes in improving Siri, is being relocated to Austin. Apple says it remains committed to San Diego and will continue to expand its engineering teams. Apple says everyone on the team will have the opportunity to keep their role in Austin, but those who don't move will likely be laid off. They have until the end of February to make that decision. A new study is shedding light on how effective COVID-19 policies were during the height of the pandemic. The study, led by UCSD, was published today. It found preventative measures such as high ventilation standards and universal masking prevented many COVID transmissions. Researchers used electronic health and contact tracing records for the study. They say among those who tested positive, the use of PPE virtually eliminated healthcare-associated transmissions.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, what Donald Trump's landslide victory in Iowa says about his influence in the Republican Party. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Attacks by Iran-backed militants in the Red Sea have effectively closed one of the globe's main trade routes to container ships. Now, oil tankers are starting to avoid the area, and gas prices could begin to rise. Jen Sullivan breaks down the impact.
The sound of UK fighter jets lifting off, part of a U.S.-led effort to go after Houthi militants based in Yemen. Backed by Iran, these militants, who say they're taking revenge for Israel's war on Hamas and Gaza, have been attacking container ships in the Red Sea since November. It's one of the world's most important trade routes. The violence has forced commercial shipping companies to avoid the area. And now, oil companies are following suit.
What you're seeing is a number of those oil tankers are no longer traversing the Red Sea.
Oil prices are already starting to tick higher. On Friday morning, U.S. crude climbed as much as 4.5% to $75.25 a barrel.
We see that the shipping is more restricted in the Red Sea. The price of oil is going up.
Gas prices remain relatively low for now. According to AAA, the national price of gas was $3.07 on Monday. But low prices may not be around for long.
We use about 100 million barrels of oil every single day, and that will certainly have an effect on price.
Summer says roughly 18 million barrels of oil travel every day through what's known as the Strait of Hormuz. But the situation in the Red Sea is so tenuous that oil tankers and commercial ships are taking a totally different route, all the way around the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. That adds days to the journey. Energy prices could spike, and so could the price at the pump. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
The price of gas is down in San Diego County for the 11th time in nearly 2 weeks. The average price of self-serve regular gas dropped 1.3 cents today to nearly $4.64. The average has dropped 11 of the past 12 days, almost 9.5 cents less than a week ago, and 13.7 cents from a month ago. The national average is $3.07. A San Marcos resident says he's the latest victim of national auto theft trend. Matt Zabrowski says he was headed to work Friday morning when he realized someone had broken into his 2017 Kia Soul. He was surprised to learn there are social media videos showing how easy it is to steal older model Kias, a fad that had started back in 2021. Most models between the year 2015 and 2019 were not equipped with engine immobilizers, which ensure ignitions cannot be started without their keys.
My feeling got worse when I learned about what the Kia challenge is. I spoke with the police about what happened. They says, oh no, not again.
And San Diego is one of many cities across the country that sued Kia and Hyundai, saying the automakers failed to install anti-theft technology. The lawsuit was settled last spring. In the not-so-distant future, electricity could come from a box of rocks. A California company is using carbon blocks to store energy from clean sources, and it isn't alone. Bill Ware has the story.
For the first time in human history, the two most affordable forms of energy do not come from burning fossil fuels, wow, but from catching onshore wind or clean, abundant sunlight.
Most days in the middle of the day in California, energy is free. Electricity on the wholesale market is worth $0, sometimes even $-, because there's so much solar that's now been installed in California.
The same thing is happening in the American wind belt. So while Andrew Ponick was the kind of kid who built solar panels in the garage, he realized that renewables are great for topping off batteries in cars and homes, but the factories, which make everything from steel to baby food, need a lot of energy all the time.
The problem is you can't shut down your factory when the sun goes behind a cloud or the wind stops blowing.
So with $80 million in investment from backers including Bill Gates, he started a company called Antora to store clean energy with...
This is it.
A box of rocks.
I had a hard time explaining to my kids what nuclear fusion is, but this is just a hot rock in a box.
Exactly.
Heated up by either wind or the sun, right?
People sometimes feel like they're insulting us by saying, hey, that sounds really simple. And we say, no, that's exactly the point. You know, there's not much more here than a steel box with insulation inside of that and some carbon blocks inside of that. That's it.
Antora's batteries heat up blocks of carbon like this until they glow like little suns for a full day.
What's right in the box right now is about 1,600 degrees Celsius. So this is hotter than the melting point of steel, and it's just a couple feet inside that shell.
By cracking open the box, Andrew says they can release enough heat to make a factory steam and enough light to generate electricity as it glows into a special kind of solar panel. And while the box is tricky to build, the rocks are cheap and abundant.
There's plenty of production of this. Even just 1% of the current production of carbon blocks would be enough to make terawatt hours of batteries, which would be enough to power, you know, the United States.
A competing company called Rondo uses even cheaper bricks in their thermal batteries to create megawatts of power for a single factory without the need for a grid upgrade, which means places with a lot of sun and wind could become magnets for new industry. Both companies were present at COP28 in Dubai, where big oil had a big presence. But Andrew came back convinced that clean, simple ideas are the future.
The transition is inevitable. It's going to happen. And actually, if you talk behind closed doors to most of the people in the fossil fuel industry, they'll say the same thing. They understand that. Yeah. But I'm confident that we're going to be able to take that huge tool that we have in solar and wind and displace fossil fuels faster even than most people think.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? What gives you that faith?
It's really because of the technologies that are coming down the pipe. If you'd asked me 5 or 10 years ago, I would have said, I'm not sure we have everything we need to decarbonize. But today, we have the tools we need. We just need to deploy them.
If you're living on low income in San Diego, you could get a new toilet for free. KPBS reporter Katie Hyson looked into a program from the San Diego County Water Authority that's saving water and money from going down the drain.
Many traditional toilets use more than 1.5 gallons of water every flush. And if it's running between flushes, it could waste enough water over 4 days to fill a swimming pool. So the Water Authority is installing low-flow toilets into low-income homes at no cost. Program Director Debbie Dunn says the new toilets cut some households' water use and bill in half, sometimes just because of a better seal inside the water tank.
Toilets with old flappers are more likely to run, and so these new toilets are quality toilets. They have excellent flappers. We're upgrading toilets in places where it may have been 10, 20, 30 years.
They've installed 6,000 of these toilets so far, and they have funds for 4,000 more. To learn more and apply for the program, residents can visit sdcwa.org. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
Meanwhile, San Diegans are being urged to be vigilant of water scams. The County Water Authority says imposter agency workers are knocking on doors and requesting entry to homes to test water quality. In a statement, the Water Authority says, quote, its 23 member agencies are not responsible for water testing or repairs inside private homes and rarely have reason to ask for entry. They add legitimate employees are always in uniform, carry an ID badge, and typically drive a clearly marked agency vehicle.
Well, some more minor coastal and inland valley warming set to make its move in as we venture our way into Wednesday. And dry conditions will stretch out into Thursday, but hey, we have some changes coming up. I was hinting at those a little bit ago, starting up later on Friday evening into Friday night and potentially lasting into the weekend. You want to stick around for that extended forecast coming up here shortly. Overnight low temperatures tonight, indeed not as low as our previous night. In fact, considerably higher. Oceanside 48, Chula Vista 49. Ramona dropping down to 44 and Borrego Springs down to 47. Again, some clouds around, especially toward the coast. As we've been talking about the last couple of days, the next round of wet weather staying off toward our north and much of the energy kind of ejecting its way off toward the east. We'll have some cloudiness around, but they're not looking overly active here as we venture our way into Wednesday and also into Thursday. So here's kind of the broad view. Again, some of those showers making their way down the south of San Francisco toward Santa Rosa, but nowhere near our region. And even as we work our way into Thursday, conditions here are going to be quiet. 63 San Diego, 64 Ramona, Borrego Springs 73, Mount Laguna at 68. On a Thursday, a high pressure is going to be around, and it will be a mild day. So as I mentioned, a little bit of warming here toward the coast and some of the interior valleys as we go from Wednesday into Thursday. Not a huge jump. And then here we go, Friday night into the weekend. Wet weather on the move in, not only at the coast, but over the interior valleys. Some of that steadier rain coming in on Sunday. Thursday looks like a great one, though. It's 71 degrees. Mountainous locations. Looking at some wet weather later on this upcoming weekend, but dry through Friday. And for the deserts, we'll see the clouds on the increase by the time we go into Sunday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Povick.
And here's another look at today's top stories. The Ocean Beach Pier appears to be headed for demolition. Winter storms in late December further damaged the nearly 60-year-old pier. Last week, the city posted notice that it has applied for a permit to tear down the iconic structure. The city says there is no active plan to demolish the pier. The application is part of the process for an environmental impact study required by law. A bill making its way through the state legislature seeks to redevelop the DMV field office in Hillcrest with affordable housing. Assemblymember Chris Ward authored AB 1635, and he says both the city and the private sector are investing in Hillcrest with new housing and park space on the 3-acre property. The bill sets a deadline of 2026 to come up with a redevelopment plan. It has to pass the full assembly before the end of the month, followed by the consideration in the Senate. A new KPBS newsletter launches today. North County Focus offers a quick recap of the big stories happening in North County, as well as a roundup of everything happening in the region. You can sign up for it at the link shown on your screen, kpbs.org/North County Focus. It's time to put the pedal to the metal and get some research done at the San Diego Automotive Museum in Balboa Park. And this morning, the museum opened a new library with plenty of content for everyone from casual car lovers to serious mechanics. KPBS education reporter MG Perez was there.
Rolling cabins for your rolling shelves here. And then you can come in here and you have access to the books.
Lenny Lazinski knows about cars, and he wants to make sure everyone else knows about them too. These are some of the 45,000 books, magazines, and manuals that make up the largest automotive library on the West Coast. With the cut of a ribbon, the Berg Family Trust Library is now open at the San Diego Automotive Museum in Balboa Park. Lazinski is the CEO.
We all have a car story. Whether we bring our kids home from the hospital, we went on a family trip, we all can share a story about something that happened involving a car.
The museum has been sharing motorized vehicles and their histories with visitors since 1988. That got the attention of the Berg family that wanted to donate whatever it took to protect and promote volumes of content that could be used for recreation and research, for hands-on learning.
A computer can do this, if a computer can do. Computers store zeros and ones. They don't store ideas. They definitely don't store dreams.
This picture-perfect moment is just the beginning of what could become an educational hub to complement what visitors are learning on the showroom floor with professional information and personal stories.
A book from 1914, Merry Christmas to Malcolm from Mother.
The Automotive Museum is open Tuesday through Sunday, and you can access the new library with a paid admission. But there is no library card because there is no checkout system. There is history and hope.
The windshield is far larger than the rear view mirror for a distinct reason. What's happening in the future is far more important than what happened in the past.
Hang on for a heck of a ride. MG Perez, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. A Republican strategist is joining NPR's Morning Edition to discuss whether or not the nomination of former President Trump is inevitable. And we're halfway through January. How are your New Year's resolutions holding up? KPBS Midday Edition is here to help you with some motivation. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.